Have you ever experienced entities, energetic beings of some description, entering, attaching to you? It's quite a mad experience. I'm quite fairly familiar with it at this point. I was just thinking because I had this experience again a few days ago at the end of a journey I was going through just within myself. And it's interesting, right? Like, what is this? What is that? Like, obviously different people have different ideas. And if you haven't experienced anything like that, it's kind of obviously sounds a bit just like, what are you on about? But I think it's to say it's a very real experience that a lot of people have experienced and do experience. I remember the first time I ever had that was, what would that be? I don't know, maybe 3-4 years ago. Something like that. And it was in this period where I'd first started opening up all of my repressed emotions, and I was just going through like deep, heavy, like processes and like big, like cathartic releases, just like writhing, squirming, wailing, like weeping. Something I still do a lot now. But yeah, at that time, there would be periods of like months at a time where every day I'd be going through these just like massive releases, sometimes more than once a day. I remember one time there was a period I think I was working through the sort of feeling of unworthiness, I think it was at the time. And I think at that point I used to use like sort of breathwork music to help me get into it, because I was still kind of, still fairly new to the world of emotion and like being able to open myself to that and just freely let things flow. So I used to have this sort of like breathwork music on to help me kind of get into that. And I think I was doing that one day, and then it took me into this like really intense self-hatred, but like beyond. I had processed a lot of self-hatred at that point, but this was just like I wanted to tear myself to pieces. I felt like I wanted to batter myself. I was like really just like I want to fucking I think I got up and headbutted the door at one point, like. But I was lying there and feeding that, like the intensity of that, and then I felt just something come into me, just sort of come onto my heart. And I sort of recognized straight away that it was an external thing, like, whatever you want to call that. Let's go with energy that had sort of come in and attached to me. And it just felt so like, dark and heavy and kind of like, it's like, there's quite a distinct feeling I find when I experience this of something coming in. It comes with this like sort of ominous kind of like, darkness, like, And so it comes in and I'm like freaking out. This is my first experience, but I think maybe I was familiar enough with the idea of it that I wasn't totally just like panicking, And I don't think I had a clear idea then of what to do with that and how to kind of like get that out and move beyond that. I remember like I got up and I was a bit in a thing and I was like, I need to do something. It was a bit like, I wasn't in full panic, but I think I was unsettled for sure. Like, it is unsettling, and still to this day, it can be like unsettling when something outside of yourself that you can't see or like have any real like understanding or conception of what that is, but you just feel something like come into you and it's like, oof. And I drove to go for a walk in the woods, and as I was walking I was trying to kind of just, I think I had enough of a kind of inkling to kind of just try and raise my frequency, my vibration, right? I think I'd maybe come across the idea that these things cling to us when they're an energetic match, when we're an energetic match for what that energy is, right? And so it can then attach itself to you. And so to release yourself from that is to change how you're vibrating, your frequency with the state you are in within yourself, and so trying to essentially bring yourself to a higher place, like out of that fucking, well, I want to tear myself to pieces, because that's it's a dark energy, and so it's attracting dark energies, I guess. Yeah, and eventually I did just feel it kind of like as I was walking and kind of just like, and it did come out, and I was like, okay, thank God for that. And then I think my next experience of it then was with in an ayahuasca journey. And what was the first time? I think I've had it a few times in ayahuasca journeys. I think the first time was, yeah, I seen this like demonic, like feline, yeah, type being that was like hanging around. It was Katerina over there, shout out Katerina, was like sort of lingering around her, and I was kind of like engaging with it, wanting it to get it away, so then it like come towards me, and it was like looking at me, and I was like, and I could feel it starting to come in, and I didn't know what to do. I was like, should I just let it in? Should I not? But I think at one point I just like allowed it to come in. I was just like, well, whatever, okay. And so it come into me, and it was like, oh, all this like, and all my stomach was all like, and it was funny actually. I pooed it out. It was like, oh, dark and horrible for a bit, and then I was like, all of a sudden I was like, oh, I need to go to the toilet, like, and so I went to the toilet and just, out it came, and just the relief instantly of just like, I flushed it down the toilet, and I was like, thank you, see ya. Yeah. And then I think maybe my next experience, which was the most difficult for sure and the most intense I've had with this kind of, with this kind of interaction with external energy or whatever. So this was the last time I did ayahuasca. So it was that 1.5 years ago. And it was the first time I'd experienced being able to fully see spirits. Like, you'd had the second cup, sat down, and just I closed my eyes, and I don't even know, I couldn't even try and think now of what happened. I remember even like during the ceremony, later in the ceremony, I couldn't even try and conceive of what had happened within me, but some wild, like, what was it? It was an opening, right? I got opened in some way. Looked like that veil got lifted, and I just went through this whole like madness, opened my eyes, and just all of a sudden, clear as day, clear as just looking at anything else. Just these beings, these spirits, these like, the first thing I seen was the dude, the guardian by the door, who I'd heard a lot about, like this like big like native Indian type dude, just like stood at the door, protecting the door, just like, and I was like, whoa. And yeah. And then I'm looking around, and just, there's all sorts going on. Like, and at one point there was a lot of darkness in the room, a lot of like, it felt like malevolent beings, energies, entities. And at a certain point, a few of them started fucking with me, like, and coming in and attaching themselves, and like, trying to like fuck with my mind and that, and telling me like, this one came in and was telling me like, I could take your mind. And I was like, fuck, you could take my mind. But yeah, I think at that point I knew enough to know, like, bring yourself to love, and then they can't stay attached to you, because they can't just, that's been my experience anyway. And something I've heard other people talking about as well. Yeah, and at one point, like, there was this one that had come into me, and I was turning my love towards it and loving it, and it was like, it didn't like that at all. It was like, nah, like, bam, gone straight away, just left straight away, because it didn't, like, it didn't know what to do with that love. It didn't know love, didn't know what love was. It was like, gone. Yeah, but it was quite, it was a lot for a while, because, yeah, there was lots of different things, and just like, oh, really on me, and like, obviously, it's an intense experience as it is, like ayahuasca. And all of a sudden you're experiencing things coming into you, and like with less than harmonious intentions. You could feel, and there was just a lot going on in the room, and it was all like, and I was seeing them for the first time. So I was seeing them, like, and watching them approach me. I remember one of them, I just like accessed my connection with the lion, the spirit of the lion, and it was staring at me like, and I was just like, and I was like, what, bro? I was like, you don't want this. But yeah, if they do come in, yeah, so if you ever have that experience, like, you feel like something's come in, you bring yourself to love, and you be good. That's what I found. And it's interesting, not long after that experience with ayahuasca, I was speaking to a dude in the hospital where I used to work, in the mental health hospital, and he was sort of like, diagnosed with schizophrenia, and he was speaking to him about his situation, and he was telling me like he had like a bit of a sort of spiritual awakening, was having some like mad experiences, like opening up, and then felt something come into him. He said he felt this like demonic like thing come into him, and sort of like, but was experiencing that then as like a voice, as like hearing that thing that had come into him, like speaking to him, so hearing it as a voice. And it was interesting because he seemed to me so like, he wasn't stupid, like, he certainly wasn't like lost in his like, it was not like he was lost in like a psychotic state and was just like, not grounded in it at all. Like, he was very grounded, very aware, very able to kind of communicate and make sense of what he was experiencing. And I was like, well, yeah, that's the thing, bro. Like, I've experienced that. Like, but obviously you go into the mental health system, they're just telling you you've got schizophrenia, and there's something wrong with your brain and you need to take these meds and blah, blah, blah. And I was saying to him, like, when that first started, when that came in and you experienced that, like, how did you react to it, and how are you responding to the things? Like, I was like, are you resisting it? He was like, well, yeah. And I was like, try love. But the problem is, in his situation, and it's interesting, right? And I don't know, like, who knows? Like, I'm not trying to say schizophrenia is this or that. Like, the whole thing's a madness, right? But there's certainly I've worked, right? I've had a lot of experiences within myself. I'm engaged in the world of spiritual experiences, like, and I've also worked in a mental health hospital for 9 years, and so I know there's a very interesting crossover between what we would call a spiritual experience and what we would call a psychotic experience, right? But I'm not trying to say, like, I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting to think how many people experiencing what we call schizophrenia or psychosis or whatever, like, are experiencing like entities and energies and beings. Like, certainly there's a crossover there. But yeah, just to say, I guess, if you ever experience that, if you ever feel like something has come into you, love. Bring yourself to love. It can't stay where love is. And this was the problem with him. He was like, because he then like ended up in this whole depression, like, and suicidal because of the whole thing. And just like, because that's the thing, is you're resisting it, you're just feeding it, like. And I knew, like, when that one came into me and was telling me, like, I could take your mind, like, I knew, just don't engage with it, like, don't like feed it, don't give it the energy back, because that's how it's going to then keep clinging. You just, as best as you can, like, stillness, peace, spaciousness, and bring yourself up to love. And in my experience, that always clears it all away. Yeah. So if you're ever having that experience, try and bring yourself to love.